Hello everyone. Okay, so let's talk about Christopher Nolan's Tenet. At long last, it's finally been released. At least it has over here in the UK. For a long time, we've been waiting and waiting. When are we finally gonna get to see it? And that time has finally arrived. So, just got back. Obviously, the trailers have looked spectacular, but obviously there's been a lot of basically mystery surrounding this film. Like, the plot details are being kept quite under wraps. The only snippet of information we've really got is that it's to do with not necessarily time travel, but time manipulation, or as they say in the film, time inversion. Um, but still, it still leaves you scratching your head, like, what the hell does that mean? And this is the point. This movie is a movie that's specifically designed to make your brain hurt. It really is. Much like Inception, that's what I will say from the start. This would make a really nice companion piece alongside Inception. But the only thing is, whereas Inception certainly was a film you needed to watch multiple times, or a lot of people needed to watch it multiple times in order to get a firm grasp on that film, I think this movie Tenet is even more so. It's on a whole other level because there's so many moving parts. So basically, the main character obviously is John David Washington. He is basically, in the film, he's basically an intelligence operative. He starts out initially as part of the CIA, and then he's recruited, kind of, I guess you could say, to do off the books work. Obviously, this whole thing surrounding time inversion. You put a report about that on the desk. No, it's going to raise a few eyebrows. No one's going to take it seriously. But John David Washington, this was my first experience with him in a film, and I've got to tell you, he's damn good. He carries this movie no problem. Obviously, he's still a relative up and comer. Of course, he's got notable credits would be Black Klansman, Ballers with Dwayne Johnson. There you go. So this is really him hitting the big time. He was in The Old Man and the Gun. Can't speak. Robert Redford's final film, if you discount Endgame, but that's not for here. So yeah, he's very, very charming, and he can handle himself absolutely as a lead actor. We've seen before, when they've tried to make stars of certain people, and it just hasn't worked. But John David Washington in this, he does everything they need him to. He's charming. He looks the part. The action, the way he handles the action in this, it's fantastic. And a lot of people, of course, they always criticised Christopher Nolan on his, or one of the few criticisms levelled at Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy was he didn't really know how to shoot action. Well, I'll tell you something right now. In this movie, apparently he learned how to shoot action, because there's a fantastic sequence where there's a fight in the kitchen of a restaurant. It's John David Washington going solo up against a bunch of thugs, and my god, what a beautifully choreographed sequence, beautifully brutal. And then there's a scene later on, shall we call it the Oslo sequence, where it takes place at the airport in Oslo, or more specifically the Freeport in Oslo. And there's an action sequence that involves a lot of this time inversion stuff, and it kind of rivals the Joseph Gordon-Levitt hallway fight from Inception, where the turn and the hallway basically it's rotating, so they're turning everything on its head and back around, and they're just having to keep fighting. Well, there's this as well, they've got to keep fighting, but time's moving backwards, and you're like, what? Or at least time's moving backwards for one of them. So the premise, obviously, he's recruited to be even like, he's a secret agent, but he gets recruited to be even a more secret agent. And basically it's to do with or initially they come across certain weapons, arms that have been basically sent back from the future, so they're inverted. So it's nicely illustrated with they're at a shooting range, and John David Washington takes a handgun, the Beretta 92 FS, the true staple of all good late 80s and 90s action heroes, and there's no bullets in the magazine, but they say pull the trigger, and the gun catches a bullet, like one goes into the chamber, and that's basically, that's them trying to make the premise as simple as they can, like to try and demonstrate it to you in operation, and then it builds from there. Not only is there obviously guns, but then there's also not necessarily time machines, but basically devices to travel through time. So it's gradually escalating, and then we find out that there's also nuclear weapons involved, like bombs that would basically cause the end of the world. So obviously we have devastating weapons in the real world, as we know, but the kind of stuff they're talking about in this movie that's been sent from the future, it runs rings around all that stuff. So obviously John David Washington is sent out to basically get to the bottom of it and stop it, recover the weapons, stop the end of the world. So that's it basically broken down into its most simple premise. We've got this futuristic technology that can manipulate time. We've got to make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands, or as the case may be, get it out of the wrong hands if it's already there, and stop basically something that's even worse than a nuclear holocaust. So obviously this is where Robert Pattinson comes into it, because Robert Pattinson is basically he's his wingman. He is the Riggs to his Murtaugh. He's the McLean to his Zeus. He's the Tango to his Cash, or the Cash to his Tango. Basically, or he's like the Poe Dameron to his Finn. And basically they're the ones who are basically going on the missions together, globe-trotting, putting the pieces together, and having a hell of a lot of fun, certainly, but it's headache-inducing fun, because you're trying to comprehend it all, but it is full. The film is self-aware in the sense that there's multiple times throughout the film that a character says, don't try to understand it, just accept it. And that's the way to go into this film. I mean, it's one of those like Inception, but even more so, you're going to need to watch it multiple times. John David Washington and Robert Pattinson are both great. John David Washington's character's the main one. The thing about Robert Pattinson's character is very interesting, because for a long time, or for a lot of the movie, you are struggling to work out where his real allegiances lie. You're not 100% sure. It keeps you guessing. And also, I'm sorry to go back to this, but in this movie, he sold me even more so that he's going to be an awesome Bruce Wayne and an awesome Batman. There's a sequence before all of the action kicks off at the Freeport in Oslo, where Pattinson goes in posing as a potential client who wants to store some valuables in the vaults there. And as he's being taken through the facility and shown the security systems, you're looking and you think, yeah, that's Bruce Wayne right there. So Robert Pattinson's great in this. Talking about some of the other actors in the piece. Obviously, Michael Caine has a special guest appearance. That's basically what it is. He's a special guest star in the film. He's basically just got the one scene, but it's no secret that Michael Caine and Christopher Nolan love working with one another. It seems that Christopher Nolan always likes to bring him in some capacity. To obviously he played Alfred in the Dark Knight trilogy. Was in Inception, and obviously now in this. What I will say, I liked Michael Caine in his scene in this. I thought this was a better scene than the scene he has in Inception. He really, this was, I don't know whether you want to say a more interesting scene, a more compelling scene, because it's basically the scene is him and John David Washington sat down at a dinner table together in a fancy restaurant, and they have really, really good chemistry. They really do, and you can see Michael Caine's happy to be there. And he's still got that glimmer in his eye, and you're like, yeah, Michael Caine. The lovely, and I do mean lovely, Elizabeth Debicki from Man from U.N.C.L.E. She is wonderful in so many ways. She's great in this. She really, if John David Washington's number one, Robert Pattinson's two, she's the third main character in this whole thing, and she's damn good. Basically, the way she factors into it, she's the wife of Kenneth Branagh's character. Now, Kenneth Branagh is playing a Russian, because why wouldn't he be? And he is basically the big bad. He's the one who's basically acquiring, shall we say, building up this arsenal of these weapons that have been sent back from the future. He's basically building this nuclear bomb, and he's basically using all of this time manipulation tech to basically bring about the end of all things. Kenneth Branagh is really good in this. He basically, the dynamic that him and Elizabeth Debicki have, he's basically the abusive and controlling husband. So obviously you spend a lot of the movie you waiting for him to get his for karma to come around and do its thing, and trust me, it does. We won't get into detail, but it's glorious. But yeah, the way Elizabeth Debicki factors into it all is she's basically the way in for John David Washington's character. Like, he's told by Michael Caine about Kenneth Branagh and his wife, and basically he says to him that basically at this point it's they're estranged, they're just keeping up appearances. So John David Washington strikes up a relationship with her, or friendship, and offers her a way out, and obviously she agrees to help him in return. But those three characters, played by John David Washington and Robert Pattinson and Elizabeth Debicki, they're a great trio in this film. Kenneth Branagh's great as the villain, and he has some really legitimate dark moments, which is great. Kenneth Branagh really shows up to play in this. Of course, Kenneth Branagh worked with Christopher Nolan on Dunkirk, so I wonder if they're striking up a good relationship. If Branagh's going to become like Michael Caine, one of Nolan's regulars, no one would complain about that, because it's a winning combination right there. Other notable names in the cast, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, of course, who played Quicksilver in Avengers Age of Ultron, the ill-fated Quicksilver. He's in this as basically a special ops, basically a military guy. He comes into it in the back end of the film, because when it comes to the finale and they're going to launch their operation to try and recover the nuclear weapon, he's basically the leader of the unit. So he basically comes into it in the second half and is basically your reliable military personnel. So yeah, everyone's good in the film. Everyone really is. Obviously, as was expected, a very long film, and I appreciate that might be a turn off for a lot of people. 2.5 hours. Obviously kind of the same sort of thing as with Inception, but if you like long movies and you're willing to go with it and willing to commit, you're going to enjoy it because it is spectacular. The beautiful locations, they globetrot like you wouldn't believe in this thing. The chemistry between all the main and the actors, between all of the main, the acting on the part of all the main stars is absolutely first class, as would be expected. You can see Christopher Nolan's put his heart and soul into it. It's one that needs to be seen on the big screen because there's, like I say, spectacular locations, a really cool idea, and the action is first rate. Like I say, specific shout outs go to the Oslo Freeport fight sequence and the fight sequence that takes place in the kitchen of that restaurant. Yeah, honestly, a lot of it on my part, I didn't read into this much going into it. Obviously, new film from Christopher Nolan, looks spectacular. A lot of it on my part, I think, has been just excitement to get back into the movie theatre. Shout out to the Teesside Showcase, by the way, that everyone's doing a fantastic job there on the staff. You know, keeping us all safe, and the system they've got in place, it's really, really easy to follow, no problems at all. Obviously the only stumbling blocks for this film is it's difficult to get to follow. It is, and it is a long sit, so I can appreciate this isn't going to be a film for everyone. Inception wasn't a film for everybody, but again, if you're willing to invest your time into it and go with it and commit, you're going to have a really, really, really fine, fantastic movie-going experience. And what a way to bring us back to the movie theatres. What a way to kickstart everything again, firing everything back up. It's also the music score in this one was wonderful. It's done by the guy who did the music for Mandalorian, which took me aback because you come to expect Hans Zimmer to be doing Christopher Nolan's music scores for his films, but no, Ludwig Göransson, again, apologies for butchering the pronunciation, but again, he did fine work on The Mandalorian, and he does fantastic work here as well. It's got a really, like you say, really synth heavy, really, really good. But yes, that pretty much wraps this up. Again, it's difficult to follow, but bear with it, and it's one you're going to need to watch more than once, but this is what filmmaking's all about. It really is, and it's a film that you need to see on the big screen. Obviously, they've got a massive budget, more than $200 million budget, and obviously they're in danger because of the current climate of making a loss on this, which is heartbreaking. But if we stay positive, they might be able to turn it around, because it deserves to do well. You know, it's an intelligent action and espionage movie. It's almost like a Bond film. It really is. It really is. So if you need a Bond-ish fix, this one might scratch it. It really might, but obviously it's a very complex plot. That's the trade-off. So that pretty much wraps this up. I really, really like this one. And if you've been fortunate enough to get to see it, I know this is opening day for us, and I know obviously a lot of people in various countries physically can't see it, which is infuriating, I know, but please feel free to share your thoughts on it. I'd really love to get your opinions on this, and just let me know if you agree with my thinking. Obviously, that's what we want to do. We want really good discussion, productive, constructive discussion. So yeah, I would love to get your thoughts on it. Thank you for listening to me ramble. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope it's helped if you were debating whether you want to go, if you were umming and ahhing, should I go, should I not. I hope this has helped. And thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to me. I wish you all the best for the future, and I will see you guys down the road at some point. Thank you, everybody. Bye bye.